Dear students, today in this module we will be discussing about biomedical waste with special emphasis on treatment and disposal. Now, in the previous module we discussed about biomedical waste, their definition, what are the sources from which they are generated. Then we discussed about its classification like hazardous and non-hazardous component. Then we discussed about what are the different health and environmental effects that they create. Then we discussed about the biomedical waste management, which involves various steps starting from your segregation, collection, storage, transport and treatment and disposal. Now, in this module we will focus on treatment and disposal. So, to brush through, biomedical waste are any solid or liquid waste that is generated from hospitals and medical centers. Even waste that is generated from the radioactive or any research centers which is involving health aspects or health perspective, they are also categorized as biomedical waste. Then they are classified into two types. One hazardous and the other one is non-hazardous component. Non-hazardous component are not so risky and they contribute a major portion. The hazardous component, it is called hazardous due to its infectivity and toxic nature. Then they also cause a lot of health and environmental effects. Now, the quantity of the biomedical waste generated is high. You have more than 15,000 medical centers, hospitals and other agencies in India which generates huge amount of waste. Population increase, again it is contributing to a large amount of biomedical waste generation. Now, when they are not treated before disposal, they create a lot of chaos on the environment as well as on the health of an individual. So, it is essential for us to have a proper waste management plan. Now, under waste management plan for biomedical waste, first is your segregation. They are categorized into 10 different categories and based on which they are collected in a color coded bins or bags. Then they are safely transported using specialized vehicles and then they are stored before treatment and disposal. Now, with this, let us look into the learning objectives of this module. The learning objectives of this module include, we will study about the various methods that are used for the treatment of biomedical waste. Then we will focus on different disposal options that are available for the biomedical waste management. Now, any waste or any biomedical waste specifically, they have to be disinfected before final disposal. Now, the anatomical waste should be generally disposed by deep burial. Now, syringes which are used like the sharps, they should be chemically disinfected at least with 1% bleaching powder and then at the source of generation itself, and then it has to be disposed of into a sharp pit. Now, infected waste should be chemically disinfected or autoclaved, shredded and recycled, and then it will be sent to disposal units. Now, these are some of the examples how the waste is generally treated before disposal. Now, let us discuss about each of the treatment options which are available for the biomedical waste. Now, first one is your incineration. Now, incineration is a process where the waste is subjected to a dry oxidation process at a very high temperature in the presence of oxygen. The temperature ranges from 900 to 1100 degrees Celsius. Now, during this process, what happens is the waste volume and weight is reduced. The waste volume is reduced by 90% and mass is reduced by 75%. Now, as a result, it reduces the organic and combustible waste into the inorganic incombustible forms. That means it results in the formation of an inert material called as ash. The process is usually selected to treat waste that cannot be recycled, treated or disposed of in a landfill. Now, all biomedical waste should be subjected to incineration before being disposed of into any site. Now, what are the waste that does not require incineration before disposal? Examples are pressurized gas containers, some chemical wastes, then the silver salts and photographic or radiographic waste that is generated during this X-ray development and things like that. Then halogenated plastics like your PVC, waste with high mercury or cadmium content like your broken thermometers, then your leaded batteries, then lead lined wooden parcels and so on. So, these generally do not require incineration before disposal. Now, what are the advantages of incineration? These give a good disinfection competence. They reduce the waste to a greater level. As I told you earlier, it reduces the volume of waste by 90% and the mass of waste by 75%. Now, the residues that is generated can be easily disposed of in a landfill because it is only 10% that is left out, and it has a relatively low investment cost, though the operating cost is little higher, and it does not require skilled operators too. When you look at the disadvantages, the main disadvantage of incineration process is the release of atmospheric pollutants. Now, during the process of incineration, there is a generation of large amount of gaseous pollutants like your CO2, oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, depending upon your nature of waste. Also, the residue, the inert material ash that is generated at the end of incineration process, they are also harmful because they are very light and they tend to be discharged much easily into the air. So, that is why they cause a lot of atmospheric pollution. So, always it is essential when you have an incinerator, you should have a air pollution control device. Now, the need for cyclic removal of slag and dirt, again it becomes a disadvantage. If you do not have a proper temperature, then you tend to release dioxins or furans during the process of plastic burning like PVC. Now, these gases are generally carcinogenic in nature and hence you have to take a lot of care. The other disadvantage is inadequacy in demolishing anti-thermal chemicals and drugs like your cytotoxic drugs. Cytotoxic drugs, as I told you earlier, these are drugs which are used for cancer therapy. Now, they cannot be done in your incineration process because these thermal chemicals cannot be destructed. So, that is why in these cases incineration does not work. The second type of process is your autoclaving. Now, autoclaving again, it is another important treatment method that is used for biomedical waste. They are used for the purpose of disinfecting and treating your biomedical waste. Now, the biomedical waste is generally subjected to the following temperature and pressure conditions based on the residence time. If the autoclave residence time is not less than 60 minutes, the temperature should not be less than 121 degrees Celsius and the pressure should be around 15 pounds per square inch. And if the autoclave residence time is not less than 45 minutes, then the temperature should not be less than 135 degrees Celsius and the pressure should be around 31 pounds per inch. Likewise, if you have a residence time not less than 30 minutes, the temperature should not be less than 149 degrees Celsius with a pressure of 52 pounds per square inch. Now, while operating under like a vacuum condition in a vacuum autoclave, medical waste is first subjected to a minimum of one pre-vacuum autoclave, so that it removes all air that is present inside the unit. Now, heating may kill the approved biological indicator at the maximum design capacity of autoclave unit. Generally, on these autoclave units, you use biological indicators for to see whether the autoclave is 100% done or if it is properly done. Generally, bacteria like Bacillus stearothermophilus spores are generally used for testing as a biological indicator. These spore strips with at least 1 into 10 to the power of 4 spores per ml are generally used as a biological indicator. Generally, you stick this strips onto the autoclave unit, that will show you whether your autoclaving is done 100% or if there is any problem with your autoclaving unit. Now, the temperature less than 121 degrees Celsius or pressure must be less than 15 psi. There are also certain chemical indicator strips which are used for showing or confirming the reaching of temperature, whether the temperature has reached 120 degrees Celsius or not, that will be indicated by the chemical indicator strips which will change color when the temperature is attained. It may be essential to use more than one strip over the waste package, because even if one strip fails, the other one will show a proper indication, and this should be stuck at various locations to ensure that the inner content of the package has been effectively autoclaved. Now, this is an example of an autoclave unit. Autoclave, again, you can have a vertical type as well as a horizontal type. This is a large scale autoclave unit generally used for biomedical waste. Now, biomedical liquid waste. Now, as I told you earlier, it is not only the solid component that forms a part of a biomedical waste, you also have a liquid component. They also should be disinfected before being discharged into a sewer system. Now, the pathological waste have to be treated with chemical disinfectants like your sodium hypochlorite, then you can use dissolved chlorine dioxide, you can use peracetic acid, hydrogen peroxide, dry inorganic chemicals and ozone. These are some of the disinfectants which are generally used. Before the liquid is discharged into sewer system, generally you do this disinfectant and then discharge them. Now, the chemical waste must be generally neutralized with certain suitable agents before flushing it into the sewer arrangement. This technique generally needs highly skilled technicians for operation of this process. While handling these hazardous waste substances, you have to comply or have a good safety measure mechanisms, because autoclave, since it is working under a high temperature and high pressure, there are chances like it can burst out. So, you have to have a proper safety measure. Now, after disinfecting your biomedical liquid waste, you have to follow or stick to certain permissible limits before discharging into the sewer system. Now, some of them are summarized in this table, like the pH should be in the range of 6.5 to 9, suspended solid should be in the range of 100 milligram per liter, oil and grease should be around 10 milligram per liter, the BOD, that is the biochemical oxygen demand, should be 30 milligram per liter, and chemical oxygen demand, that is COD, should be 250 milligram per liter. So, only when the biomedical liquid waste is showing these permissible limits, then it can be discharged into the sewer network, otherwise you have to go for further treatment before disposal. The next type of treatment after incineration or autoclaving is your microwave treatment. In microwave treatment, most of the microorganisms are destroyed by the action of microwave at a very high frequency of 2450 megahertz and a wavelength of 12.24 centimeter. The infectious contaminants in water are generally destroyed by heat conduction when it is rapidly heated by the microwaves. Now, the bacteriological and virological tests, you can use these tests for checking the efficiency of microwave disinfection, and these should be done frequently to check whether the treatment is 100% done or it is complete, or if it is still the pathogens are existing there. The biomedical waste is heated to a temperature of 97 to 100 degrees Celsius by means of microwave inside a treatment chamber at the source without shredding. Shredding is again one processing method, you can say. It is nothing but cutting your biomedical waste into small pieces. You can use a lot of other units like cutters, chippers, shredders, grinders to reduce. This basically reduces the size of your waste. So, biomedical waste can be heated at a temperature of 97 to 100 degrees Celsius in a closed chamber by using microwave. They are generally suitable for treating most infectious waste with an exemption for body parts, human organs, infected animals, their carcasses and any other metal objects. These microwave treatment generally possess a good disinfection competence, just like your incineration process, but under certain operating conditions. Generally, they cause extreme shrinking of your waste. The waste volume gets reduced drastically. They are eco-friendly, although they have relatively high investment and operating costs. Now, this image shows you the various processes involved during the microwave treatment process. One, you load the waste or the bio waste either manually or automatically. Manual means a person will be adding the waste, and mechanically means machines are used. The second step would be grinding step, where you reduce the size. Grinding is nothing but a sort of shredding, where you reduce the size of the waste. Then you heat you heat the waste material for sterilization purpose using a microwave. Then the last one, you transfer the grinded sterilized waste into a container. I mean, the residue is then transferred safely for further disposal. Dear students, in the first part we discussed about the various treatment options that are available for the biomedical waste. We discussed about incineration, what are its, how the process is actually done, what are the advantages and disadvantages. Then we discussed about autoclaving, how it is actually done at various temperatures, pressure and so on. Then we discussed about how you use biological indicator or other chemical strips to find out the waste is completely disinfected or not. Then under chemical treatment, we discussed about various disinfectants that are being used. Then for biomedical liquid waste, before being discharged into the sewer system, we saw how it should be disinfected and what is the disposal or the permissible limits for them being discharged into the sewer system. Then we discussed about the microwave treatment, how the microwave treatment reduces or disinfects your waste and reduces the quantity of waste too. Now, in the second part, we will be discussing about the various disposal options that are available for the biomedical waste. Now, the first disposal option is your deep burial. Now, here what you do is a pit or a trench will be dug. The size of the or the depth of the pit would be around 2 meters. So, you dig a pit or trench of 2 meter deep, and then what you do is you fill the waste. Half the size of pit should be filled with waste. Then you add up to 50 centimeters, you add lime, and on top of it you fill it with soil. Now, after filling this pit with soil, you cover it with a galvanized iron or wire mesh, and on top of it again you spread one layer of soil. At the edges you can have soil accumulated in sort of a bund, so that any water that is accumulated, it will prevent from overflowing outside. Now, the site where this pit or where you are going to select for deep burial, it should be generally not located in a shallow region where your groundwater table is little high. Then this pit should be selected outside your habitation area. It should not be near your residential area. It should not be close to your surface water body, or the groundwater table should not be high. Also, it should not be located in a flooding or erosion zone, and always such deep burial pits should be approved by the competent authority, and then you have to start performing the deep burial in that particular area. Now, this image you can see how a deep burial pit actually works. At the bottom you have the waste that is being loaded, and once the waste is loaded, on top you line around 50 centimeters, you add lime, and on top of it you add soil. Okay? Or after you add soil, then you cover it with a galvanized iron or any wire mesh, and then on top of it again spread 10 centimeter of soil. On the sides you can see a small bund that is being created, that is to avoid the spillage of overflow of water from these pits. The next disposal method is your inertization. Now, inertization is a process where your waste is just assimilated or contained in a cement block. Now, how do you do it is like the waste is generally mixed with cement or lime and then made into blocks. Now, this method is generally done to minimize the risk of toxic substance from being discharged or escaping out of the waste material, and generally it will also prevent the contamination of surface or groundwater. Now, a typical percentage mixture is like if you have 65% pharmaceutical waste, 15% will be cement and 5% will be your water. These are mixed, made into a mixture, like you can make it as a small pellet and then spread it into a flat structures, or you can also make it into blocks and then you can carry it and place it into the disposal site. The inertization method is generally not suitable for waste possessing your infectious characteristics. The next disposal is like specially for sharps. Sharps are nothing but your syringes, needles, blades and other sharp material which are used in the hospitals and medical centers. Now, blades and needles should generally be disposed of in a circular or a rectangular pit which is generally lined with a brick, masonry or a concrete ring subsequent to your disinfection. That means, before you add it into these pits, they should be disinfected. Now, the pit is again covered with a heavy concrete slab which is penetrated by a galvanized steel pipe. Projecting the pipe projection, it should be projecting outside, like the height should be around 1.5 meter above the slab. Now, through this pipe you add the waste. Once it is full, you seal the pipe completely. This is how the sharps are being disposed of. The next type of disposal is for your radioactive waste. Again, during radiotherapy and other research purpose, radioactive materials are used and they are generated. Now, the material is generally stored under careful controlled conditions till the level of radioactivity reduces. That means, the radioactivity nature should be very low. Till that time you have to store it under controlled condition. Later they are just disposed of with other waste. Now, special care is generally required when old equipments containing these radioactive sources is being discarded. Now, mercury waste also should be disposed of carefully. Now, from where are these mercury generated? Generally from your thermometers and other measuring equipments which has mercury, that results in the mercury waste. Now, waste containing equal or more than 50 ppm of mercury, 50 milligram per liter of mercury are generally considered as hazardous waste. Now, any spillage due to the breakage of thermometer or other measuring equipment, they should be recovered with proper attention. The mercury should not be mixed with the other biomedical waste, they have to be recovered, segregated separately. Now, there are specific treatment and disposal methods for the different category of biomedical waste. I hope you remember in the previous module we discussed about 10 different category of waste under the segregation section. So, each of these category they have suggested a proper treatment as well as disposal options. This is given under the biomedical waste handling rules. For category 1, it is generally incineration and deep burial, same as for category 2. Now, category 1 and 2, what are the waste that comes under category 1 and 2? It is category 1 is human anatomical waste and category 2 is your animal waste. Likewise, if you see for the category 3, the general treatment method that is suggested is your local autoclaving, microwaving and incineration. Now, what is third category waste? So, a third category waste is nothing but your microbiology and biotechnological waste. Now, category 4, disinfection, like you can use chemical treatment like disinfectants, any sort of disinfection you can use. You can also use autoclaving, microwaving and mutilation or shredding. These can be used for category 4 waste. Category 4 is waste sharps. Now, for category 5, you can go for incineration or you can any other thermal destruction method, and for drugs you have to do a proper disposal in a secured landfill. Now, what are the waste that comes under category 5? It is your discarded medicines and the cytotoxic drugs. So, for these medicines and cytotoxic drugs, you have to go for a contained or a secured landfill. Now, for the category 6, incineration, autoclaving and microwaving is generally used. Category 6 waste is generally your soiled waste material like your linen or bedding materials that is generally contaminated with blood. Now, category 7, you can perform disinfection by chemical treatment, you can go for autoclaving, microwaving and shredding. Now, category 7 waste is nothing but your solid waste. For category 8, again you perform disinfection by chemical treatment and then discard them into the drains. Now, what is category 8 is your liquid waste, biomedical liquid waste. Category 9, you go for disposal in safe municipal landfill. Category 9 is your ash that is generated at the end of incineration process. Now, last category, category 10, you generally they have suggested chemical treatment and release into drains for liquids, and for solids they should be protected in a landfill. Category 10 waste is again a chemical waste, which is generally like the disinfectants or insecticides which are used. To summarize, at the end of this module, we have discussed about the various treatment methods that are available for the biomedical waste. We discussed about the incineration, we discussed about its advantages, disadvantages, then we discussed about autoclave units, where autoclaving is also performed for biomedical waste. Then we saw what are the different temperatures and accordingly how the pressure kept varying and what is the residence time that played or influenced your temperature and the pressure. Then we also discussed about certain chemical and biological indicator strips which will indicate whether the autoclaving is done properly or not. Then we discussed about the microwave treatment method, where microwave at a very high frequency is generally used for treating the waste. Then we discussed about certain chemical treatment like the use of disinfectants like your chlorine dioxide gas, then sodium hypochlorite, bleaching powder, which are generally used. This is generally applied for biomedical liquid waste. Now, after the liquid is treated by these disinfection methods, then they are generally drained off into the sewer network, and before they are drained into this sewer system, you should see whether the liquid waste sticks to the certain permissible limits which we summarized in a table. Then we discussed about various disposal options like your deep burial, how you trench out a pit and how you add it and then layer it with soil, lime, galvanized iron and so on. Then we discussed about the disposal options for various radioactive waste, mercury, shafts, etc. And finally, we summarized in a table like what are the different treatment options or disposal options that are suggested for 10 different categories of biomedical waste. I hope you would have enjoyed this module. Thank you.